Let's review Hohem iSteady V2 Smartphone Image Stabilizer. This is Artist Right. Before we start, subscribe if you're new and hit on the bell icon so you'll be notified every time I upload cool new videos like this. Hohem sent me this smartphone stabilizer for review. All the opinions you're about to hear are my own. So let's start out with the device and what comes in the box. You get this image stabilizer that you have to open up because it ships in a compact form like that. And it also works really well when you want to travel with it as well so that it doesn't take up too much space. But the one thing I noticed initially pulling it out of the box is that that screw was pretty much really tight. And because I didn't want to break it, so I didn't want to push the screw that far, but you have to just unthread it in order for you to set this up properly. The next thing that it comes up with is also this little mini tripod, although this is using, I think, a standard 3/8 connection, so you can even put a quick release plate on the very bottom and put this on a professional photography tripod or anything that you may have, and you don't have to use this little tripod. Or if you have a more sturdier one, bigger one, you can certainly use that instead of the one that comes with it as well. Beyond that, what you also get is a USB-C power cable that allows you to charge this device, and it has a built-in lithium-ion battery. We're going to talk about the battery life in just a moment. You have the carrying pouch and also a strap, but that is pretty much the stabilizer itself. So in testing this out, what do I think about the stabilizer? I think it's really good. Having a stabilizer when you're really walking with your phone, even though, for example, my iPhone 12 Pro Max already have image stabilization at the sensor level built in, having a stabilizer running on top of it definitely does help make for a much smoother clip, especially when you're walking around. Now, the thing with all these stabilizers in general is that it does a really good job stabilizing, for example, left to right, and also pitching up and down and so forth. It makes it really smooth. The one motion it doesn't really do a good job with in general is the scalloping motion, the Z-axis motion, as you're walking and you're holding the camera, for instance. You're going to see that slight scallop happening. This is happening across all other stabilized device unless you get one specifically that has like an extra arm that will compensate for the up and down motion. But that's just something to note. Beyond that, I think what makes their product really unique is the fact that there is an LED array at the very top there, so you can actually light up those 4 LEDs. There's different brightness level, and there's also a camera. The camera itself acts as an AI. They call it an artificial intelligence. It has the H2 chip on the inside from Hohem. And pretty much what that chip will do is that it will work with their app to do facial tracking. It will also recognize hand gestures. So you can go up to this camera, tell it to start tracking you, and it will do face tracking. It will track subject and everything. From the app itself, it's really good. The only problem is that you have to use their app in order to get the full capability out of the stabilizer. So that would be like the only feedback of it. Can you use the stabilizer with other camera apps? Absolutely. You don't have to use their app, but you do lose some of that functionality for like tracking and everything that I think once it's integrated within their app, it tends to work better and you can really see the result. And the stabilizer does a really great job tracking faces and everything. All right, beyond that, this is around 263 grams. So overall, it's really lightweight. It's not that heavy at all. The battery inside, like I said, is a lithium ion. It is 2800 milliamps. And what that really equivocates itself to is that if you just use a stabilizer, it is around 9 hours. The moment you start to activate the LED light or the AI, for instance, you start to lose the amount of time that you have on the battery. So if you enable the AI function, the facial tracking and all those other things, the time goes down to around 4 hours. And then if you also activate the LED light in front of it, for example, you're trying to do a selfie filming or something like that, well, then the battery life goes down to around 2 hours. So far, I would say that rarely would you ever take this out and just continuously film for 5 hours, but this will last throughout the day just fine, especially if you don't use the AI function or the LED light. Now, the only feedback I have about this in general, because this has a built-in battery, what that means is that if you take this with you somewhere, you have to carry this with you. You can't check it into a plane. And if the battery dies, you would have to carry a battery pack and charge it through the battery pack. You can't just swap out the battery. So those are just some of like the downside of a built-in battery. But so far, I think that it's not really going to be such a big issue. And you charge it via USB Type-C that's on the side of the device right there. And with this, you pretty much get some controls that are tactical. You can go up, down. You can go zoom in and zoom out. And one of the things that I noticed from their apps in general, and you have to go in and customize the setting, is that these up, down, left, right controls, the default, which is set to medium on their application, can be really fast, meaning that the moment you tap on it, it goes whoop like that or up and down really quickly. and it can be jarring. So I have to go in and customize everything to slow so that everything just kind of moves slower, it's smoother. But so far, I mean, I think this is a pretty good stabilizer to have. And having the AI function is great because what I can do is just simply set this up somewhere on a tripod or something like that and just do the AI hand gesture and it will start tracking me right away. And even if I move left to right, you can see that the head is going to start tracking me in those direction, and it's also a stabilized clip at the same time. So a lot of really good usage for that. All right, let's take this out on the road and see what this looks like when we bring this on location, how it tracks, and you can kind of see the results. So this is the Hohem app, and what you simply do is use this along with the iSteady V2, and I'll start this. So what I'm going to do now is I can go in and control the pitch up or down. And like I said before, this is kind of fairly fast. So I'm going to go into the setting. And we're going to change motor response to low. We're going to go flow speed to just slow in general so that it's not quite as jarring. And we have the LR joystick to low. We're also going to change the tilt to low as well because everything else seems to just make everything super jarring. Now you can see that it is still a little bit jarring, but it's much less fast, and I can rotate this to left or right. Like I'm doing now, this works really well. On the side of it, there is a zoom, so you can use the zoom on the thing too, and then at some point it does stop zooming. You can kind of see that. It's pretty cool, and you can change a different focus. You can do facial tracking. So what I'm going to do is I'll activate facial tracking right now. And now it's doing face tracking. So with this, I should be able to pop in front of the camera, and now you can see that the camera on the phone is now tracking me as I'm moving left to right. So I can do a presentation this way, and you can see the phone is fully tracking me, which I think this is a really cool feature, especially if you're trying to do a video like this. This is pretty much just me as a film crew. I have a camera that's filming my phone right now, and I'm moving around from left to right, and the camera itself on the phone, the Hohem itself, the app, is doing a pretty good job tracking it. Now, like I said, to get the full advantage of this, to have this whole thing tracking, you need to use their proprietary app, which I don't think it's actually a big deal at the end of the day, but it's just something that you may want to just think about when you want to use this thing. Now, the other thing that I noticed, and you're gonna see this right now too, is that the phone is not fully horizontal, and then sometimes it always goes kind of like off tilt like that for some reason. I'm not 100% sure why, but I'm gonna move a little bit more here, and you can see that the phone is still tracking me from left to right. So far it's doing a really good job. I can actually move back, and it will also track me as well. And even if I move close to a lens, it will still continue to track me. So the facial tracking feature on this is really cool. Now what I'm going to do is try to turn this around. So we'll stop the recording and stop the face tracking, because now, see, it's still trying to track me at the moment, which is kind of neat. So we're going to stop that face tracking for a second. And what you can certainly do as well is you can do object tracking too. So if it's not a phone, for instance, let's say if it is my hand or something, it can say object tracking, and let's see if it actually tracks that. So I have to select the subject first, I think. Oh, there we go. So now, once you select the subject, you can see like it's tracking my hands as I'm moving left to right. It's not the smoothest motion as you can see when it's tracking. I mean, it does some like jarring move, even though I'm moving fairly slowly. It's just that I think when it gets like the edge area is really trying to work really hard to track the subject. Now I can go up or down, you can see, and it lost my tracking. So let's try to see if we can go up slowly. So there are certain motions you can't do a really good job with, and the motion overall can be somewhat jarring. So that's just something to think about. Now, I didn't start recording or anything yet. I'm just literally using the photo view on this to just kind of show you how this whole thing works. There are different modes you can set this to right now. For instance, at the moment I have the video set to 4K 30. You can do a different grid. You can do a different zoom speed. There is the professional mode that you can turn on. So when I turn on professional mode, you can see I can do the different EVs, the back camera and everything. It's kind of neat what you can really do and go in and control this. The tracking feature, though, is the one that really takes the day. Now, if I go into this thing and I press on the very button at the very top and hold, now this is doing the AI tracking. Automatically, you can see the light turn on once. I can also press on a button to turn on all the 4 lights. into like three different level of brightness. So 1, 2, and 3, you can see that there. And pretty much this is now using AI function. Okay, so now I am back in the app again, and you can see me with my camera. You can see everything happening. What I can do though is when I'm in the app, I can press that once and it will go into vertical mode, to which I'm already off the frame. I can do that to change back into horizontal mode, but it does center back in the way how it does before, so it doesn't really quite center back on the person. It doesn't work quite well on that one. Let's see if the hand gesture would work. So I think, yep, there we go. We're gonna enable gesture control. And what I'm going to do now is give it the gesture to start tracking. Okay, so you can see that when it's doing the tracking part, starting with the gesture, it's now really cutting off my hand. That's the one thing that I don't really like about the front-facing camera when it's doing that. Now, if I want to stop it from tracking me, what I can simply do is just hold up my palm like so, and the light over there now turned red. If I move around, it's no longer going to track me. Okay, so what do I think about the Hohem i7 V2? Right now, I have this on a Arca Swiss quick release plate. It's using a 3/8-inch quarter screw, which is pretty much like the normal one that you just use on tripod in general. I think is a pretty good device for camera stabilization, especially for smartphones. If you're looking for something that you're trying to make really fun footage of, you want to have really smooth controls, this is definitely something to consider. If you're willing to put in the time and the effort to also learn their AI gesture a little bit more and master it, I think that this can be a really good stabilization device for you to consider. Anyway, I hope that you find this review to Hohem i7 V2 helpful. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below. Give this video a like, subscribe, and hit the bell if you're new. And remember, in art we trust.